Hello there, and welcome to What's the Point? A question we should all be asking ourselves, and the podcast by brand architect Bill Ellis that will help you discover, clarify, and live your purpose.
Hey everybody, I'm your host Bill Ellis, and welcome back to What's the Point? I am fortunate and grateful to have a spectacular guest today. Let me first say hi to him, Chris Dorris. Hello, Chris. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, well, thanks for the invitation, Bill. I appreciate it very much.
Well, it's a pleasure. So let me tell you a little bit about Chris. Chris is a pretty phenomenal man. The simple pigeonholing of him is he's a mental toughness coach, and the translation of that might be more understandable as a success coach. But to sum it up, Chris says this. He says that he can honestly say that he lives a work-free life because he truly loves what he does, and he loves the folks with whom he does it. And that says a lot. That kind of sums up exactly what this podcast is about. So we're going to get into some more of that detail, Chris, and find out how you got to that point.
Good. That's perfect. My philosophy is that we are not born to settle, right? And the bottom line of my work, you could say mental toughness training really is about freeing yourself from the conditioning of your past that would have you unnecessarily settle, struggle, or worse, suffer. So I'm looking forward to this, my friend.
I am as well, and I'm going to ask you right off the bat to repeat what you just said, because there's people that are on treadmills or walking or just couldn't hear fast enough.
Oh, that's great. Okay, yeah. So, I refer to myself as a mental toughness coach, and I use that for a couple of reasons. One, it's cool, it's accurate, it's good branding, and it's accurate because I define mental toughness as the product of having done the internal work so that you are able to respond to all of life intelligently. And my belief is that we are not designed as humans to settle. We are literally, mathematically speaking, miracles. Right? We are incomprehensible improbabilities if you do the math. And people have done the math. There's a guy, a Harvard student, that did the math. His name is Ali Benazer, and you can Google him. You can look that up. He did it. He's got this really clever, cool as hell PDF called What Are the Odds? Ali, A-L-I, Benazer, B-I-N-A-Z-I-R, What Are the Odds? And you'll see a cool PDF that has, fun illustrations of the improbability of us. So we don't exist here to settle, right? The conditioning of our past would have us unnecessarily settle, struggle, or worse, suffer, right? So my whole mission in life, the reason I chose this particular vocation is to help people is to free themselves up from the conditioning of our past that would have us unnecessarily settle, struggle, or suffer.
Outstanding, and I would venture to say that applies to every single human in the world.
Amen.
Without fail. So let's take a little bit of a trip down history lane and understand how you got to where you are, but also to understand why you're wearing a Philadelphia Phillies hat. Congrats on how far you guys went this year, even though what you did to my Cardinals hurt. But that's neither here nor there. So born in Florida, but you moved to New Jersey, right?
Yeah, I was born in Florida. I was adopted. I was born in Sarasota, Florida, and then spent the first year I was adopted and spent the first year of my life living in Clearwater Beach, which is where the Phillies actually do spring training, Clearwater.
Right.
And then my family moved back to the South Philly area, southern New Jersey. So, I was absolutely destined to be. I think I was born with this on, as a matter of fact.
Okay. Well, a good year for you to be a Phils fan and probably an Eagles fan too. But so what I find interesting is how your career started. You started as a social worker, and you started really kind of, speaking of Jersey, on the streets of Atlantic City, helping just a whole variety of people that desperately need help. Share a little bit about how that came about and what it was you were doing, Chris.
So when I left college, I did not have total clarity on how I wanted to use my life. I had some. But what I did have clarity on was that I was going to commit my life to serving people in the way that we just described. right? And having people really experience life fully and wonderfully and magically and with abundance and celebration and lightness of being, So but that's it. That's all I knew. I mean, that's some good clarity, but I didn't know what the hell. I didn't know what form it was going to take on.
Right.
All right, and I couldn't have articulated it that way in 1990 when I graduated from college. Right, not even close. I just knew I wanted to help people. Okay. So, but I didn't know how, and I wasn't necessarily in a hurry. Right, because I didn't want to rush in and take a job because it was available. For money. And if anyone ever asks me, what's the decision that you're most proud of in your life, it would be the decision to not take an opportunity to go make money at the expense of my passion. I stayed with my passion. I stayed with it. I stayed with it through a lot of poverty. I stayed and stayed. So I knew that I would be able to. I read a book in 1990 that is called Do What You Love, The Money Will Follow.
Okay.
By, I believe the author's name is Dr. Marcia Sinitar. I think that's correct. I'm almost certain. And what a perfectly timed read that was to encourage me, as my friends were all going and getting super high paying jobs right out of the chute on Wall Street and killing it financially. I'm making, honest to God, do you want to know what my salary was when I was a social worker from 1990 to $17,500 a year?
Okay.
How did I even live on that? That was man. So anyway, I took the job because it was available, and it also satisfied my requirement, which was in service to people. But I knew that this is not going to be my gig. It was tough work. I'm unbelievably beautiful, meaningful, perfect foundation for everything to follow. Working with chronic schizophrenics and homeless people and drug addicts, right, in a rough neighborhood, in Atlantic City. So something happened though. During the 4 years, I shattered this is very serendipitous. And thank God for this. It's the best damn thing could have happened. I didn't think so at the moment. I shattered my leg playing basketball. I had a really bad, it was a compound fracture, bone protrusion. It was gnarly, like gnarly. Yeah. And I remember vividly seeing my legs in a shape that it's not supposed to be that way. Other people turning away on the basketball court, cringing because they were looking at me. And I got a fatty embolism from it. It gave me pneumonia. I was on an ice blanket in Princeton Medical Center for 8 days with 107-degree temperatures. I basically almost died. So so that was an experience where I said, I think I'm done with hoops. I played in college. I played for 5th grade. I'm like, we're good. That's enough. I'm not going to the NBA. Let's just simmer down. So I switched sports. I divested my passion from basketball and reinvested it into golf, and immediately discovered how mental the game was. So then I became clear, you know what, this could be my ticket. This could be my deal. I think this is I'm going to marry my passion for sports with my passion for the human spirit and human potential and psychology. So I moved out to Arizona and pursued, got my master's degree in counseling with an emphasis on sports psychology. And we probably should talk about at some point, like maybe now, the magic that I co-created during the internship, which completely changed the trajectory of my life. But I'll just finish the question though. So I became a licensed therapist, and then I shifted into coaching. I became a sports psychologist, started my practice, and then a lot of the golfers, I was focusing on golf, not exclusively, but I was that's the sport that I was pursuing clients in, and a lot of golfers are business people, and these guys were inviting me into their companies, saying you need to bring this mental toughness training stuff into my sales teams because they need it bad. And then I opened up, the world that I'm in now, which I would never have been able to even predict, which is I'm like doing mental coaching in perhaps the most competitive industry on the planet at the moment, which is tech sales, enterprise software sales.
Yeah.
multi-billion-dollar international companies that are bringing me in to coach tons of their teams. Because it's completely mental. So it was a cool evolution, right? That I couldn't have predicted, Bill. But the one through line is that I stayed with my passion. It took on different iterations, but the backbone remained the same, which is serving people through helping them strengthen the way that they use their minds and respond to all of life.
Okay, well, first of all, that's an amazing journey, and thank you for sharing it. A few years and a few minutes. Very clear how you, or at least where you came to be. Let's talk just for a minute on just kind of terminology that I use and you use. So you've mentioned several times, Chris, that it's your passion to help people, and you have a passion for sports, and you combined everything. In my terminology, and again, this is maybe semantics, but I see that you discovered very early in life your purpose, and your purpose was to help others. And how you were going to do that, you didn't know. But throughout everything, you stayed crystal clear on your purpose was to do everything you could to enhance the lives of others. And so in my terminology, that ignites the passion for what you can do. And that helps us to, once we can hone in on purpose and our passion gets ignited, that helps us to kind of start to create a path or to start following a path, or at least have an idea where our journey is going to take us. And I think your story it sums that up very nicely. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. It actually goes back, if you were to ask where did that clarity come from, it goes back even further, long before college, where I had these neighbors growing up, and my adopted father died when I was 9, and he was only in his 40s, so he died really early, and we did well. He did very well, and then when he passed, we had no more income source, so we went from pretty well off to struggling pretty hard, and did it pretty fast. So bless my mother's soul, she worked her butt off. She went out and got 3 jobs, to try to maintain a lifestyle, which was impossible. And our house became pretty stressful. You can delete the word pretty there. It was very stressful.
Yeah.
Okay, so the vibe in my house was not light. Okay, it was heavy as hell, and I was consistent, and it was tough. But my neighbors were a stark contrast. My neighbors were named Dan and Mame Kane. They retired. They worked on the Philadelphia Railroad. They were old, wonderful Irish couple who were madly in love and knew how to celebrate life. And my bedroom faced their house. So I would be in my bedroom every day reading Hardy Boys books or something like that, and they're laughing. So their routine was, this is down at the Jersey Shore in a town called Sea Isle City. So they would start on their front porch every day of the summer with happy hour. And they're always hosting different people throughout the entire summer. People come down for 4 days or a whole week or whatever. And they would have happy hour on their front porch, and I would come back from the beach, and I'd say hi to everybody, lean over and get a shrimp or something, and then, and then my mom would call, tell me to come home for dinner, and then I'd go into my room later, and so they would go into the house for dinner, and then they would retire to their back patio for cocktails, and laugh their asses off all night. I mean, boisterous. It was You know how contagious laughter is, right? You don't have to have any clue. They do fun research experiments on that where they'll put an actor down on a subway platform and just starts cracking up. And people at first are a little bit annoyed because, just the person's laughing so loud, and then they start smiling. And then soon enough, everyone's laughing and no one knows why. It's mirror neurons. So laughter and joy, celebration, lightness is contagious in a great way. So I caught it from them. And I never got rid of it.
That's brilliant. It's funny, a quick footnote, anecdote on laughter. I've got a friend, and years ago we used to travel with some frequency to different golf trips. And he has just an absolutely boisterous, unique, engaging laugh, and he laughs at the drop of a hat. So
Love
we'd be
it.
in like crowded airports, and he would break into his laugh, and exactly what you said. People at first would look around like, "What is that guy so noisy?" And then it was just you could see the look on people's faces just
That's good.
change and soften because of the joy that he showed and the joy that we had laughing with him.
Do you remember
Uh,
his name by any chance?
we called him Jolly John.
Of course you did.
What else would we call him?
Well,
Yeah, I
I hope
remember.
Jolly John sees this, and shout out to you, Jolly John. I love that. That's great.
I'll send it to him.
Good.
Um,
That's awesome.
So just another quick footnote for those that are listening, rather than having the chance to view it on the Bill Ellis YouTube channel, Chris is wearing a shirt that says, "If it ain't light, it ain't right." And you've talked a couple of times. You've mentioned lightness. Build on that. Let us know what you mean by "if it ain't light, it ain't right."
Yeah, so I'm really into. I use mantras in my work, in my coaching, in my speaking, in my writing, and a lot. And this is one of them. And some of them I've stolen from different influencers in my life, and some of them I've created. Some of them my clients have created in the middle of coaching sessions. I don't remember where this one, "if it ain't light, it ain't right," came from. But if you were to ask me, Bill, what's your purpose? Like CD, which is what people call me. What's your purpose? What's your life purpose? I have an answer, and it's been this answer for quite a long time, and it's simple: to bring lightness of being to the planet. Now, in my experience in helping human beings, in every different iteration of my vocation, like again, starting with social work, but then really when I was working exclusively with athletes, and a lot of them professional athletes and Olympians and whatnot, like Super Bowl champions and professional golfers on all the tours around the world, what's so fascinating, what is so wonderful to know, to acknowledge as true, is that people are at their best when they feel their best. No one has ever described a peak performance as heavy, painful, a struggle, frustrating, ever. It's not the way it works. Like nobody's let go of a pen like this and it's gone up, because it ain't the way it works. Right? So the way we work, and this is beautiful, I'm very grateful for the fact that we evolved this way as humans, is that the better we feel, the better we are, but only at everything and only always. So if it ain't light, it ain't right. So that stands in the face of some really stupid commentary, like a lot of what we've learned. Like, for instance, one of the dumbest phrases that's so popular is, "No pain, no gain." Oh, really? Have you ever done any research on human peak performance? It's more like no pain, good, keep it that way. And I'm not saying don't train your ass off, like work at, yeah, work, follow your passion, trust the inherent within your passions are the mechanics for their own fulfillment. I'll say that again. Inherent within your passions are the mechanics for their own fulfillment. Put another way, inherent within your passions are all the ingredients for the ultimate highest levels of success in any definition. So trust that. Trust the organizing intelligence inherent within your passions. And then when you're doing like the work or the training, it's not really work to you. Like when you said in the beginning, I don't have a job. I don't. I get paid. I do things. But is this work? Me with you now? Hell no. You know, I'll get on a coaching call later with a guy who I adore. He's just an amazing human being, and I pick my clients. I'm extremely selective with who I coach, which means whenever I see somebody's name on my calendar, I lighten up, because I'm like, oh, I get to go hang out with JD. Oh, I get to, right? So there's no work, right? It's all lightness of being. So if it ain't light, it ain't right, is a fun mantra to remind us that lightness of being is the way. You know, like, again, I'll wrap this piece up by saying the zone is a term. Like, oh man, she was in the zone.
Yeah.
You know, Michaela, she was in the zone on the downhill. You know, and then you interview her afterwards. Yeah, you just had a record. You just set a career best. What were you thinking? I don't know. Yeah, I don't think I was. Well, what was it like? I got to tell you, it was eerily easy. Like, it just, like, there was no struggle, there was no worry. It was like flow. That's a synonym. I just said synonym. I put the emphasis on the wrong syllable. But yeah, but flow is a synonym of the zone. And again, everyone always describes it as light. So light is right.
Okay. I love that, and yeah, I love the analogy as well. So, out of deference to what you're comfortable with, I'll stop the Chris and go to CD. CD, let me take you back to you were going to share something about when you were at Arizona State getting your degree, and there was something there you wanted to share with us.
Well, first of all, you have done your research, and I appreciate that. Well done. Bravo to you, because I didn't tell you that. So good for you. You are one hell of a podcast host. You do your work, and that's really spectacular. So bravo.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that goes a long way, man. So good on you. So we're in the second semester. Let me preface the story. All right, the story I'm about to tell is one of the most important stories of my life. That has profoundly not only changed in the most spectacular of imaginable ways the trajectory of my own life, but I've used it it has become like the way that I coach and influence people. All right, so it's time for us to get our internships in our master's program, second semester, second year of 2 years. And we called it a practicum, same thing. Mm-hmm. And the professor gave out a list. The guy who's in charge of practicums, he gave out a list to the class of all these different mental health organizations, like counseling agencies and whatnot, where students from the past in our program have gone to do their internships to make it easy to go find one. But I was interested in none of them because I came to Arizona from South Jersey, having just done 4 years of that. Mm-hmm. And I knew that's not the thing anymore. I did that. I want to do sports psychology. But I went on purpose. I chose this program, which is a counseling specific program. There were no other students that were specializing in sports psychology. I did that on purpose because I wanted to study the mind. I didn't want to study phys ed or physiology or kinesiology or any of that stuff. I wanted to study the mind. So I knew I was going to have to do some extra legwork. So I look at that list and I'm like, yeah, nothing. There's nothing on there. So now it's after class. I'm standing in a parking lot with my classmate. Her name at the time, Teresa Kowalski. And I'm complaining. I'm just being a whiny jerk. And I don't want to do any of this. And she's letting me vent. And then what happened? She asked me 2 questions. And these 2 questions changed my life and have changed many lives of people that I've influenced. So much brilliance in these 2 questions. The first question she asked was, all right, CD, so what would perfect look like? Now, I couldn't even hear that because I was so trapped in my small, puny thinking that, you know what I heard? You know what my brain translated her question into, Bill?
No idea.
Well, we'll just say this is the list, right? So I'm holding up a list I keep on my desk. It's totally unrelated to the story.
Right.
It's just a prop. So we'll say this is the list of possible internship locations, right? Or venues or whatever, organizations. What I heard when she asked me, hey, CD, what would be perfect for you? That's my phone thinking I just said, hey, Siri. Well,
please repeat what you said.
Yeah, I said, what would perfect look like? I don't know what's going on.
I found this on the web.
All right, that's not helpful. Thank you for the effort. Sometimes she's so good. So what I heard wasn't, hey, CD, what would perfect look like? I heard, from this list of available options, what would suck the least? That's what I heard.
Okay.
Right? Yeah, and that's how we hear things. A lot. Mm-hmm. A lot. I actually have an exercise in my workshops on that where I ask a question, people don't hear the question, but maybe we'll get back to that. So anyway, I didn't hear what she said. I heard it through a filter of limiting thinking. And I said, I don't want any of this crap. And I start complaining again. She's like, stop. She's like, CD, I asked you, what would the best possible case scenario be? And now I'm starting to maybe hear her. And I'm like, you mean like in a perfect world? She goes, that's what I asked, for God. Yes. So I'm like, all right, well, like like if we want to like ignore reality, what would be perfect would be to do an internship with the men's golf team here at Arizona State. It's the best golf program, men's and women's, like on earth. Phil Mickelson just left and they won the national, But then as soon as I finished saying that, I add to it, but what would they want with a non-contributing zero like me who has none minutes of applied blah, 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 blah. And she's just holding her ground. So brilliant. She's just standing there waiting because she put the question out. She's just waiting for a damn answer. So she's waiting for me to work my way through all my jibber jab. Mm-hmm. And she's staring at me, holding her ground brilliantly. So then I started to really think. Yeah, okay, so that's it. That's my answer. And then she follows up with the kicker question. Why don't you just ask? So the two questions are, what would perfect look like? Or what does perfect look like? And why don't you go ask? So I said that my first response, after she asked me that second question, why don't you just ask? I said, oh, you're so pretty. You don't get it. You're so naive. It's D1, T. It's D1, okay? It's like they're the best. It's Arizona State, and I'm just rambling off all limiting nonsense. And I'm glad she didn't have the same learning that I have about how D1 works. Division One.
A quick footnote for the non-sports fans: D1 is the highest level of sports competition at the university level in the U.S. So D1 is Division One. It's the top.
Good job. Thank you for that. Yeah. So I'm stuck in my brain with all my assumptions about that. Like, why would this university that has a ridiculously successful and competitive sports org, what would they want with me? So she's just not buying in it. She just asked a very good question, again, holding her ground. And I see her staring at me, waiting for an answer. So that's when I said to her, you know what, T, you are good. You are good. You got a gift. And I said, up to this moment, the answer to your question, why wouldn't I have asked, is because I wouldn't have even entertained it as a possibility in the first damn place. But now that you got it out of me, the only reason I wouldn't ask is because I'm a coward, and I can't be that guy. So I went and I asked my supervisor, would that even count? Like, if I somehow pulled that off, if I somehow managed to pull that off with the coach, would it even count? And he said, absolutely. I just can't be your advisor because I don't know anything about sports psychology. You'd have to go get a licensed PhD with applied history of practice, particularly with golf. And I said, all right, so you're saying I got a chance.
Yes.
So I went and I found, and I'll save you all the rest of the details, even though they are magical. It was relatively effortless. I went to the other side of campus where the clinical psych department was, and I just asked. I just started asking around. I asked the head of the department, this is what's going on. Do you know anybody? And he said, yeah, right across the hall, Dr. Darwin Linder. He's a golfer. He's done this before. He'd love. So I made an appointment, asked Dr. Darwin Linder. That guy was over the moon. It was like I invited him to like an exclusive party. He was like, oh, this would be great. And then I asked the coach. I got a meeting with the golf coach. I was nervous as hell, which was unnecessary, but I didn't know it because of my limited thinking. And Randy Line, he fell in love with the idea. I pitched it. And he said, that sounds great. I said, what? I'm like, sorry, coach. You must not have heard the part about I have like 0 minutes of applied practice, right? And he thought, well, you can start with the freshman. If it goes well, you can work with the rest of the team. So I got the internship, okay? And it went magically. It went so well that after it was over, and so was my master's program, the coach hired me for the next decade.
Wow.
I was the mental coach for the ASU golf team for 11 years, 10 and a half, right? And what happens is, it's a great program. All these guys, so many of the guys that go through that program go on the tour. Then they become my clients. It was like the fastest track I've ever heard of someone going in the field of sports psychology from 0 to 100, from no applied practice whatsoever to working inside the ropes at U.S. Opens with clients on tours all over the world. And we'll summarize it like this. The two brilliant questions. Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, T. What does perfect look like? Why don't you go ask?
Well, that's a fabulous story, and one that just helps to summarize for me why I was so excited to ask you if you would share your time and gift your time with us on the podcast. And so I want to touch on a few things here that are going to be really relevant to the listeners and helpful to the listeners. You mentioned earlier, CD, that you are mantra driven. And I think that's great because I'm open to mantra reception. I discovered you through mention in a daily correspondence I get from our mutual friend, Bob Berg, co-author of The Go-Giver. There it is, right on camera, right on your desk. And he mentioned one of your mantras, and he made some points with it. And one thing about Bob, he's always 100% ready to give credit to whomever inspires his thinking. So I was reading, I subscribe to, and this is what everyone listening, do this. Subscribe to Chris Dorris's The Daily Dose newsletter, and you can go to ChristopherDorris.com to sign up for that, and it's all going to be in the show notes, so don't worry about it. There's a lot more in the show notes coming. But The Daily Dose is literally mental toughness in 30 seconds or less is how it's positioned. And at most, since I've been getting these, the longest one I've seen is maybe 3 sentences. Okay, I'll say 4. I'll say 3 sentences and some subpoints. But one of them that got me, actually motivated me, so that you know this, to actually reach out to you. Because there's not a huge benefit for you doing this podcast, and that's why I appreciate it. But it was one of your daily emails. And it said, "Hey, Bill, all results fall into one of 2 categories. A, you got what you wanted. B, you didn't." And then some more wisdom that's wrapped around that. And I figured, there again, in my life, what the heck? What have I got to lose? Let's ask the gentleman, and here you are. So in this case, score a win for got what I wanted. So thank you.
Yeah, you are very, very welcome. So the rest of that daily dose message is that, and both of those outcomes are equally powerful and valuable. When I get what I want, I get to celebrate, and when I don't, I get to grow. So
Exactly.
So you can't lose.
And I knew you'd expand on that, so thank you. So what I want to do now is just share a couple of the more recent mantras from the Daily Dose, just so people can hear them and gain the insight, but also to tease them to make sure they go and register for this, because sign up for this. It's a quick read and everyone's valuable. So the one, it might have even been today's. When you're unpleasant, you're simply not present. And in my terms, in my world, we say stay in the day.
Yeah, when you're feeling unpleasant, it's because you're simply not present. So low-grade emotional experiences cannot exist when you're fully present. They can only, a low-grade emotional or low-grade emotional state can only exist either in the future or the past. If I'm thinking disastrously about the future and therefore create anxiety, or if I'm thinking in a low-grade way about the past, I'm creating regret or animosity or whatever. But when I'm present, all there is peace. All there is serenity. All there is lightness of being, again. So that's actually a good practice, so that's practical and not some airy-fairy just comment. Pay attention. This is really truly fundamental to the practice of mental toughness training, or strengthening the way that you use your mind so that you can respond to all of life masterfully. Start to heighten your awareness to your states, like acutely heighten your awareness to your emotional states, and label them. Get familiar. Become really, really sophisticated. Like a sommelier is to wine, you become a master to your moods, where you can detect them. Just from the smell, they can tell this is a Merlot. And you can instantly be able to identify what's the state that I'm in right now. What is the state that I'm thinking my way into right now? And then you can manipulate it. But it starts with being able to even pay attention. So when you notice that you're feeling unpleasant, it's because you're either off in the future or you're off in the past. Get back to now. Change your thinking. Use the mantras. But I don't know if you know it, but I just published, this book just came out. My last book, the book of mental toughness mantras, and this is the best thing I've ever created. And the reason I'm bringing this up now is because it's got 52 of these mantras, like if it ain't light, it ain't right, ain't bad, just is. This is the best damn thing could have happened. Vibe up, get your head out of yeah butt, which is a fun one. So what these are, what that is a reference guide.
Yeah,
right?
and it's brilliant. I would show you my Kindle with it on there, but you just take my word for it. It's on there. So moving on with some more of the daily dose, if I may. A couple of them are kind of simple. One is follow your bliss.
Yeah, that's Joseph Campbell.
Yeah.
I took that right out of his pocket.
Yeah, and the nice thing is, just like Bob Berg, you gave credit to where it goes, but it's a great message, and again, you'll get a sentence or two that builds on that. Another one is be willing to be wrong. I've learned through life that we have to, be open to learning, and it's important to say where might I be wrong. And there's a phrase, we have to avoid contempt prior to investigation. So be willing to be wrong is great.
Yeah, Bob Berg's great at talking about that too. But yeah, every one of these daily doses they're mental toughness tips in 30 seconds or less. And what I've done is taken constructs, disciplines, practices, and like a chef, reduce down to its like neutron star density core. Mm-hmm. So it's consumable and digestible, and something that you can read in literally less than 30 seconds, unless you're an unbelievably slow reader, which is fine too. But then it might be mental toughness tips in 38 seconds or less. But it's something to help you get your head right. So the follow your bliss one, we could elaborate on that all day. In fact, we already did earlier. We already talked about it, which is inherent, right? Inherent within your desires are the mechanics for their own fulfillment. Inherent within your greatest passions are the mechanics for success. And then, what was the last one you just said?
Be willing to be wrong?
Yeah, right. So the conditioning of our past would have us to think that there's some real value in investing tremendous amounts of energy into being right. And all that is a fear-based behavior that if you really slow down and think about it, we spend a hell of a lot of time trying to be right. Because we've been convinced that there's value in that. And if you slow it down and really examine, where is it really that valuable? It isn't. The real value is in growing. So it's like shut your mouth. Become an amazing listener. Become an amazing, amazing listener. The value for you is tremendously greater by being a phenomenal listener than the value in being right.
Yeah. All I can say is another well said. I've got one more just because I love it, and it's starting to show that you're like a two-question guy, I guess. If things go differently than you wanted, then ask yourself two questions. The first, what's the learning? And secondly, what good can I create from this?
Every set of circumstances can be created from if viewed masterfully. And the first question, though, is what's the learning in this? I learned that from a Golf Hall of Fame epic coach of the women's golf team at ASU, right? Because of the internship, then I got to know Coach Linda Volstead. She told me that. She said, she was in the context of golf, every round of golf has a lesson for you. So after you're done playing, go dig in and get it. It's not going to hand it to you. You got to go find it. and then grow from it. And I thought that's spectacular. That doesn't just apply to a round of golf, for goodness sakes, and she knew that.
Yeah.
So it applies to every event. So particularly, so it's like, again, you mentioned it earlier. There's two categories of results. Got what I wanted, didn't. Both equally valuable. Got what I wanted, celebrate, yay. Didn't, grow, yay. Right.
And by example, a practical application of that, because I know a lot of the listeners are in sales, it's real simple. If you pursue trying to add value to someone so that they'll make a purchase, because we can't truly sell, see Bob Berg for more details. In its simplest form, we'll get a yes or we'll get a no. Well, the thing about getting a no is we've learned from it. And we've learned where there's not an opportunity. We've learned perhaps the reason for that no. And getting that no has moved us closer to the next yes. So there's definitely benefit there. Each of the Daily Dose emails end with the sign-off, create miracles. And that in and of itself is probably worth it. So I'm sure you're familiar with this book, but I'd be interested in your comments on it. CD, the book Golf is Not a Game of Perfect by Bob Cullen and Dr. Bob Rotella. No doubt you've read that multiple times.
I didn't read it. I annotated it. I ingested it. Oh, I did. It's right behind me. This is one of my libraries right there. And I not only have the book, I have a folder of notes from it. I basically rewrote it for myself because it was just profound. Dr. Bob, amazing guy, by the way. Amazing leader, gracious, operates from the abundant mentality. He has been a tremendous influence. So yeah, amen to him. And yes, that's one of my favorites ever.
And if people want to get that book, it's applicable not just to golf, but well beyond golf. It's very applicable to life. Yeah. So whether you know golf or don't know golf, whether you like golf or don't like golf, that book can be a very positive impact on our lives. So you mentioned your most recent book, the book of Mental Toughness Mantras, which is on the screen again almost. I think I see it coming. There it is, the Book of Mental Toughness Mantras. But you've written several other books too. You want to share some things about that? Creating Your Dream, Confidently Stepping into Your Own Brilliance. The Daily Dose, start all 365 days of your year with a dose of mental toughness in 30 seconds or less, which is what we just talked about. Not a book, but that's your daily email.
It is actually also a book. Yeah, I made a book.
Is it a book as well? Okay.
Yeah, I guess several people that are on the Daily Dose list said, "Hey, why don't you make a book out of this?" And after I heard that 3 or 4 times, I thought, "That's a no-brainer. Yeah, that's a no-brainer." So where it is, right here. So all I did was take the first year of them, right? The first 365 and throw them into a book. That could have been easier. But that's nice because it's like this one, the Book of Mantras and the Daily Dose are books that you don't read these from cover to cover. That's not what they are.
Right.
Okay. It's like you just flip a page open and you pick one and you read it. And it's incredible how often it happens where it's like, oh, that's exactly what I needed to hear today. Or that's perfect for me. I'm going to this meeting and this Daily Dose is like perfect to help me get my head right. And then the same as the Mental Toughness Mantras book. It's a book that I want to keep right here on my desk. It's a reference guide, okay, so that I can use throughout the day, right, to help me get my head right. If I'm not feeling cool, I can just open this up and just flip open and say, here's one. If your memory was better, you'd realize how amazing you are. And it's 1.5 pages. And that's it. So I love brief, I love concise, and I love powerful. I love simple and profound together. All right, so that's what these are. First of all, I just want to say thank you. You are really so gracious in not just in your research, but in your promotion of my work here. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you. And again, that's part of my purpose is to deliver valuable content and insights to my listeners from people that have discovered and are living their purpose and helping all of us, myself included, to grow as we do. So I guess I couldn't have done my research that well since I didn't realize that 365 days was a book as well as your daily mantra. But
Or
hey,
maybe,
you have to have some surprises when we talk, don't we?
or maybe I just maybe the learning. What's the learning in this for me is maybe I need to talk to my team about making the daily dose a little bit more obvious to the public. The book. Yeah, but
Yeah,
that was
exactly.
one thought that I didn't finish on that because that is really good. The mantra, which is, we're not the mantra, the daily dose, which is after you don't get what you want, get as fast as you can to the two questions. What's the learning in this? And what excellence can I create from this? And I really do want to just hammer that home a tiny bit more right before we conclude, because there's so much value in that. We have been conditioned to simply pout, or mope, or just have a damn problem with when we don't get what we want. So one of the most powerful practices in reprogramming your mind, which of course I call mental toughness training, you can call it whatever you want, is getting as fast as you can to creation from all circumstances. All circumstances. Hence again, the mantra, which is in the book, is one of the 52, right? Which is, every set of circumstances can be created from if viewed masterfully. And that's the real bottom line there, is I want to practice having masterful responses. This mental training is about strengthening your response ability to life. Byron Katie said something like, until you are able to respond to all of life with creativity, your work is not done. It's very powerful.
Brilliant stuff. So I feel like I'm calling a sports open talk radio show. A comment and a question for you, and then I'll let you go so I can be responsible to the time frame I promise you. The comment is, when you talked about you can just open up either of those books, your daily mantra book, the new one with the 52, or the 365 day, and you'll get something. Whatever it is, you'll get something. Speaks to me. What I've learned is the phrase, when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. What I've come to believe is that when the student's ready, they realize the teacher's always been there. They're just open to taking it in. So I love that about how your book works. Just flip it open to a page and see what's there. And if we go after things with a positive, what can I learn mindset, we're going to get something from it. So that's my comment. And now I've got a question for you, which is kind of very simply the title of the podcast. Everything we've talked about, all of the mental toughness coaching, your journey from Florida to New Jersey to Arizona to where you are now. When you look at all of that, for our listeners, what's the point?
It's a way to bring it full circle. What a beautiful wrap up and bow on this wonderful conversation. It's what we get to do as humans, which is grow, which is free ourselves. What's the point? The point here is that as humans, we get to free ourselves from the conditioning of our past that would have us unnecessarily settle, struggle, or suffer. Right? To free ourselves up from the learned thinking behaviors and habits that would have me hear this friend of mine ask me, "Hey, CD, what would perfect look like?" And me instead hear what would suck the least from this limited list of non-desirable possibilities for you. To free ourselves from that conditioning so that instead, in a circumstance like that, as soon as the prof says, "Hey, it's time for an internship," go, "I want to work with the golf team." Right? Or to think, to have clarity, to get instantly clear on what our desires are, but not just clear, enthused about the imminent nature of creating them. Right? Not just as possibilities, but as imminent, of absoluteness, that our desires are in fact available to us, all of them, in some form or fashion. So what's the point? The point is to thrive, not survive. The point is we got into the incomprehensible improbability of life. We are, mathematically speaking, miracles. I say that in a mathematic context. We are miracles. We are incomprehensible improbabilities, which is why I sign off all of my emails and all of my daily doses create miracles, because you are one. So therefore, we should be doing nothing other than continuously creating them. That's the point.
Brilliant. I appreciate it. And speaking of wrapping it up with a pretty bow, that was very well done. So there's going to be a lot of information, folks, in the show notes. And one thing that I did not talk about, and my apologies, but the conversation didn't take us there, is get to ChristopherDoris.com and check out his online workshops as well. He's got mental toughness workshops that you can get this in a much deeper dive than my podcast is giving you, and it's certainly something I'm going to check into. So again, my guest today, Chris Dorris, mental toughness coach, Philadelphia Phillies fan, author of the book of mental toughness mantras, The Daily Dose, starting all 365 days of a year, with a dose of mental toughness in 30 seconds or less. That title takes about 30 seconds to say, by the way.
That's funny.
I thank you, sir, for your brilliant insights and for sharing your time. It's been amazing. Thank you.
You the man. Thanks, Bill.
Thanks so much for tuning in. And if you like what you heard, please subscribe so you don't miss an episode. We can promise you'll gain value in every one. Rating and reviewing makes us more discoverable and helps others find out what's the point. And if you'd like to know more about Bill Ellis or contact him, please visit his website, www.brandingpillars.com. See you next time.